The city never sleeps. But this morning, something woke it up. Emily was just doing her job, cleaning the streets, one step at a time, invisible to the world she served. She was tired, worn, but hopeful, dreaming of a better tomorrow. Then, without warning, her world shattered. A sleek black car pulled up. The door opened. Out stepped a billionaire socialite, flawless, powerful, untouchable. Her eyes caught Emily, standing quietly in the rain. Without a word, without a second thought, the billionaire lifted her designer heel and splashed muddy water right onto Emily's dress. Laughter followed. The rich woman walked away, leaving Emily frozen in shock, humiliated, soaked, and ashamed. But this wasn't just a careless act. Someone had seen it all. A bystander, hidden behind a coffee shop window, pulled out his phone. With a steady hand, he recorded the whole scene: the splash, the scorn, the silence that followed. Minutes later, the video exploded on social media. The city gasped. The billionaire's empire trembled. And Emily's story, once invisible, suddenly became impossible to ignore. This is not just a story about mud. It's about power, humiliation, justice, and how one small splash can change everything. The city woke slowly that chilly morning, the sky still heavy with thick gray clouds, promising rain. Streetlights flickered one last time as the first faint sounds of traffic began to hum through the air. The downtown streets glistened wet with recent showers, puddles scattered here and there like forgotten mirrors reflecting the tall glass buildings and flickering neon signs. Emily adjusted the strap of her worn-out cleaning cart, the wheels creaking as she pushed it along the cracked sidewalk. Her breath formed small clouds in the cold air. She tucked a stray strand of dark hair behind her ear and looked up at the towering skyscrapers that loomed over her like silent giants. To most people, this part of the city was a playground of wealth and power, a world of polished floors, luxury brands, and endless ambition. But to Emily, it was just another place where she worked, where she made sure the dirt and grime never showed. She worked as a cleaner, an invisible cog in the vast machinery of the city. Her hands, rough and calloused, wiped away footprints and spilled coffee. Her uniform was a faded blue dress, patched in places, her shoes scuffed from years of use. She carried no name tag. No one called her by her name here. "Hey, Emily," a voice called softly behind her. She turned to see Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly lady who ran the coffee shop on the corner. She was setting out fresh pastries on the window ledge, her wrinkled face warm and kind. "Morning, Mrs. Jenkins," Emily smiled tiredly. "Long night?" Mrs. Jenkins asked, leaning on her cane. "Long day ahead, more like," Emily replied, rubbing her hands together. "But I'm used to it." Mrs. Jenkins gave her a knowing look, her eyes filled with sympathy. "You keep working hard, honey. Don't let this city make you feel small." Emily nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. "I try." The coffee shop's bell jingled as a few early customers entered. Emily's gaze drifted back to the street, where the first drops of rain began to fall, pattering softly on the pavement. She pulled the hood of her thin jacket over her head and kept pushing the cart, wiping windows as she went, careful not to leave streaks. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from her mother back home in Ohio. "How's work today? Remember to eat well." Emily smiled briefly, typing back, "Busy. I'll call later." She glanced at the building ahead, a sleek, mirrored tower, home to some of the city's richest people. This was the place where most of her day was spent, cleaning luxury offices and sparkling lobbies, where polished marble floors reflected chandeliers that cost more than her rent. She paused a moment, letting her gaze wander up the glass facade, feeling a strange mix of awe and bitterness. "Maybe one day," she whispered to herself. Suddenly, a low rumble announced the arrival of a black luxury car pulling up near the entrance. The door swung open, and a woman stepped out. She moved with grace and confidence, dressed in a crisp white suit that contrasted sharply with the dreary morning. Her heels clicked sharply against the sidewalk as she approached. She wore large sunglasses despite the gloomy sky, and a diamond necklace glimmered around her neck. The kind of woman who could command a room without saying a word. Emily watched her silently, unsure if she was just another passerby or someone important. The woman stopped a few feet away, glanced down at Emily, and then without warning lifted her heel and kicked a splash of muddy water right onto Emily's dress. Emily gasped, the cold mud seeping through the fabric, clinging to her skin. She stood frozen, stunned, as the woman smirked and turned on her heel, walking away without a word. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. Her fingers trembled as she tried to wipe the mud from her dress, but it only smudged further. A few passers-by looked away quickly, pretending not to see. Others whispered behind their hands, shocked but unwilling to get involved. Then a soft voice behind Emily said, "Are you okay?" She turned to see a man holding up his phone, the screen glowing. He had been recording the entire incident from inside a nearby cafe. I'm fine," Emily stammered, voice barely above a whisper. The man smiled gently. "I'm Jake. I just wanted to make sure you're all right. Not many people have the courage to stand like you did." Emily blinked back tears. "It hurts, more than the mud." Jake nodded. "I can imagine." He showed her the video. Emily watched, feeling the sting of humiliation all over again. But then, a spark of hope flickered inside her. This video, it could be her voice. The world might finally see. Over the next few hours, the video exploded online. Thousands shared it, outraged by the billionaire's cruelty. News outlets picked up the story. Hashtags like #justice for Emily trended worldwide. Suddenly, Emily's life changed. The invisible became visible. The forgotten was remembered. But with attention came danger, and Emily would soon discover that standing up meant risking everything. Emily stood on the sidewalk, her soaked dress clinging to her skin. The mud was cold and uncomfortable, but worse was the feeling in her chest, a heavy mix of humiliation, anger, and disbelief. The woman who had splashed her wasn't just anyone. She was Victoria Marston, one of the city's most notorious billionaires, known for her ruthless business tactics and luxurious lifestyle. Her name appeared regularly in magazines, her face gracing billboards and social media feeds. She was untouchable, or so people believed. Emily had only ever seen her from a distance, a shimmering figure in the world she barely dreamed of joining. And now, Victoria had kicked mud onto her like she was nothing. People around them whispered. Some stopped to stare, but no one stepped forward. Emily's fingers trembled as she reached into her pocket, pulling out a small handkerchief. She tried to blot the mud from her dress, but it only smeared more. "Are you okay?" Jake's voice was steady, kind. Emily looked up, meeting his eyes again. He was in his early 30s, casually dressed, with a calm presence that made her feel less alone. I will be," she said quietly. Jake gestured toward the cafe. "Come inside. You look like you need a break." The warmth from the building's interior hit her like a wave as she followed him inside. The smell of coffee and fresh pastries was comforting. Jake ordered 2 hot drinks and handed one to Emily. She wrapped her hands around the cup, savoring the heat. "Thanks," she whispered. "You're welcome," Jake said, sitting across from her. "My name's Jake Collins. I'm a journalist." Emily raised an eyebrow. "A journalist?" "Yeah. I cover stories that matter. Stories about people who don't usually get heard." Emily nodded slowly, hope stirring. "Thank you for recording that. For sharing it." Jake smiled. "You have a story, Emily. And people want to hear it." The video goes viral. Within minutes of Jake uploading the video, it started to spread like wildfire. Social media users shared it with furious captions. "How can someone with so much show so little humanity? This is the real face of privilege. Justice for Emily." News outlets picked up the story. Interviews followed. Some people expressed outrage, others disbelief. Victoria Marston's PR team scrambled to respond, releasing a vague statement about unfortunate misunderstandings and apologies for any discomfort. But the public wasn't satisfied. Emily watched the reactions unfold, stunned by the sudden attention. Messages of support poured in from strangers across the country. Some sent money to help with her bills. Others invited her to speak out. She realized, for the first time in a long time, she was not invisible. Back home. That evening, Emily sat on the worn couch in her small apartment, her mind racing. She stared at the muddy dress hanging by the window, the stain stubborn and ugly. Her phone buzzed with messages, reporters, supporters, even Victoria's team trying to contact her. Her mother called. "Emily, I saw the video. I'm so proud of you," her mother said, voice trembling with emotion. "I don't know what to do," Emily admitted. "I just want to live my life, without this drama." Her mother's voice was firm. "This is bigger than you, honey. You have the chance to make a change for yourself and for others like you." Emily sighed, tears threatening to fall. She had always believed in kindness, but now she knew the world could be cruel. But maybe, just maybe, her story could be different. As days passed, Emily's life changed. She received invitations to talk shows, offers from advocacy groups, and even a lawyer reached out, offering help to file a complaint. But with the attention came challenges. Victoria Marston's lawyers threatened lawsuits. Some social media trolls attacked Emily with hateful comments. Her co-workers whispered, unsure how to treat her. Emily felt torn, scared, hopeful, overwhelmed. One night, she sat alone, scrolling through the endless news stories about her. Her phone vibrated with a message from Jake. "You're stronger than you know. Don't let them silence you." She smiled weakly. For the first time, Emily understood that her life was no longer just about cleaning floors and wiping windows. It was about standing up not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been ignored. Emily sat quietly in her small apartment, the city's distant hum filtering through the thin walls. The mud stain on her dress, now dried and crusty, seemed like a scar marking a moment she couldn't forget. But there was more to Emily than what people saw on the surface. She wasn't just a cleaner with a muddy dress, she was a daughter, a sister, a woman who had fought hard for every inch of dignity in a world that often overlooked her. Her phone buzzed again. It was a message from her little brother, Marcus. "You're famous now. Mom's proud. Don't forget us when you're rich." Emily smiled sadly. Marcus was only 12 but already full of dreams. Dreams she hoped to help him reach. Ever since their father passed away 3 years ago, Emily had been the anchor for her family, working double shifts to keep the bills paid and food on the table. She thought back to that day, the day everything changed. The day their father had collapsed after a long illness, leaving the family struggling to make ends meet. The hospital bills, the funeral, the eviction notices, each a heavy stone on her shoulders. She had come to the city to find work, to build a future, to keep her family safe. But the reality was harsher than she imagined. Cleaning offices in the richest part of town meant being invisible, ignored, sometimes even treated like dirt. She remembered the countless times she had overheard executives laughing at staff, or the way some would cross the street to avoid walking near her. But Emily never complained. She worked hard, hoping one day life would turn around. The next day, Jake came to her apartment with a notebook and camera. "I want to tell your story," he said, sitting on the edge of her couch. Emily hesitated but nodded. He asked about her childhood, her dreams, her struggles. She told him about Ohio, about her father's death, about the fight to keep her family together. With each word, Emily felt a weight lifting, as if sharing her pain made it lighter. Jake listened carefully, promising to tell the truth, the whole truth. Meanwhile, the video of the mud splash raged across the internet. Millions had watched the billionaire's cruel act. Hashtags trended worldwide. But the attention wasn't all positive. Victoria Marston's PR team launched a damage control campaign. They paid influencers to shift the narrative, calling the video misleading and taken out of context. Emily watched as some people defended Victoria, calling Emily a liar, accusing her of seeking attention. It hurt deeply. Then, unexpectedly, Victoria's fiercest competitor, a tech billionaire named Daniel Kane, reached out. He offered Emily a chance to speak at an upcoming charity event focused on workers' rights. Emily was nervous but accepted. Over the next days, Jake helped Emily prepare. She practiced speaking, telling her story not as a victim but as a survivor. Her confidence grew. When the day came, Emily stood on stage, the spotlight warm on her face. She looked out at the crowd, faces filled with hope, empathy, and change. Her voice was steady. Her message clear. That night, Emily went home exhausted but hopeful. The mud on her dress was gone, but the mark she left on the world was just beginning. Emily's world had never been easy. Long before the muddy water splashed down her dress on that cold morning, life had tested her in ways that left invisible scars deeper than anyone could see. She sat at the kitchen table of her small apartment, fingers wrapped tightly around a chipped ceramic mug, the faint scent of strong black coffee rising with the steam. The room was cramped, with faded wallpaper peeling in places and a single bare bulb casting a weak yellow glow. Outside, the city buzzed relentlessly, oblivious to the quiet struggle inside. Her mind drifted back to the nights she spent lying awake on a thin mattress in her childhood home in Ohio, the cold floor beneath her as her parents whispered late into the night. The arguments, the uncertainty, the fear, all mixed together into a heavy fog that clung to her memories. Her father, a gentle man with calloused hands and tired eyes, had worked 2 jobs to keep the family afloat. He dreamed of better days for Emily and her younger brother, Marcus. But illness stole him away too soon, a long, painful battle that drained their savings and shattered their sense of security. Emily remembered the hospital smells, antiseptic and despair, and the hollow silence after the final breath. Her mother, once vibrant and full of life, became a shadow, her laughter replaced by quiet tears. Emily was only 21 when her father died. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders like a boulder. After the funeral, the bills came fast and unforgiving. The house they had called home was repossessed. Emily took a job in the city, far from her family's small town, hoping to earn enough to send money back home. Her days were filled with cleaning floors, wiping windows, and scrubbing toilets. The uniform she wore felt like armor, a constant reminder of where she stood in the world. Some days, she worked double shifts, the ache in her muscles a dull reminder of the endless grind. She missed Marcus terribly, his first day at middle school, his awkward teenage years, the moments she couldn't be there. But she sent every paycheck home, sacrificing her own needs to keep her brother fed and her mother's medications paid. One night, after a particularly long day, Emily called home and heard her mother's voice break on the other end. "Emily, Marcus had an accident. He's in the hospital." Her heart stopped. She grabbed her coat and raced through the cold streets, the city lights blurring through tears. At the hospital, doctors explained Marcus had fallen from a tree, breaking his arm and suffering a concussion. Emily sat by his bedside for hours, holding his small hand, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. That night, lying on the cold hospital chair, exhaustion overwhelmed her. She cried silently, the weight of fear and helplessness crushing her. But even in the darkest moments, Emily found sparks of hope. Her mother's strength, flickering but unbroken. Marcus's laughter when the cast was finally removed. The kindness of strangers, a nurse who offered a smile, a coworker who covered a shift. And the belief that if she kept fighting, something better would come. Now, sitting in her apartment with the muddy stain on her dress still fresh in her memory, Emily wondered if the world would ever see the battles she fought every day. Would anyone care about the woman behind the dirt and grime? Or was she destined to be invisible forever? The answer, she knew, was about to change. Days in the city blurred into one another for Emily. The relentless grind of work left her exhausted, yet her mind was never quiet. Between the early morning starts and late nights, she battled a storm of worries and dreams, the invisible weight that came with being the family's anchor. The muddy dress incident had thrust her into the public eye, but it was only one moment in a lifetime of struggles. She woke before dawn every day, the cold air biting at her skin as she prepared for another long shift. Her small apartment was quiet, except for the soft breathing of her mother over the phone in Ohio, a voice she held close even from miles away. Sometimes, when exhaustion overtook her, she questioned if all the sacrifices were worth it. One particularly brutal evening, Emily found herself sitting alone in a dimly lit diner near her apartment. The hum of conversation around her felt distant and hollow. Her fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup as she replayed the events of the past weeks in her mind. The viral video. The public outrage. The media attention. The threats from Victoria Marston's lawyers. None of it had prepared her for the sudden loneliness. Despite the support flooding in online, Emily felt isolated. The people who once ignored her now stared or whispered behind her back. She thought of Marcus and her mother, their faces lighting up when she called, and how much she wanted to give them a better life. But how? That night, a soft knock came at her door. Emily opened it to find Jake, the journalist who had recorded the video. He carried a small box and wore a concerned expression. "I thought you might need this," he said, handing her the box. Inside was a simple gift, a journal, with a leather cover worn smooth from use. "It's for you to write your story," Jake said gently. "Not for the world, but for you. To remind yourself where you've been, and where you want to go." Emily's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever given her something like this, a symbol of belief, not pity. "Thank you," she whispered. In the days that followed, Emily found herself at the center of a media frenzy. News crews showed up at her apartment. Reporters called her phone non-stop. Some stories painted her as a hero, a symbol of courage against the elite. Others questioned her motives, trying to dig up dirt. Victoria Marston released a cold, calculated statement, denying any wrongdoing and calling the video a fabrication. Emily's lawyer advised her to prepare for a legal battle. The city that once ignored her now seemed divided. Some hailed her as a voice for the voiceless, others branded her a troublemaker. Through it all, Emily clung to one truth: she had done nothing wrong. One afternoon, Emily attended a community meeting organized by a local workers' rights group. The room was filled with faces: janitors, cleaners, delivery drivers, people who knew the daily grind all too well. As Emily spoke, sharing her story in her quiet, determined voice, the room grew silent. She wasn't just a victim, she was a fighter. Applause erupted when she finished. In that moment, Emily felt the power of community, a reminder that no one was truly invisible. That night, as she sat by the window, city lights twinkling like distant stars, Emily opened the journal Jake had given her. She began to write. Words poured out memories, dreams, fears. For the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. Her story was just beginning. Emily's life was no longer hers alone. The splash of muddy water had shattered the fragile walls between her quiet existence and the harsh glare of the world's spotlight. But with visibility came scrutiny and the kind of pressure that threatened to break even the strongest. She began to notice the way people looked at her, some with sympathy, others with suspicion. At work, a few colleagues whispered behind her back. The cleaning crew had always been close-knit, but now there was a distance, a nervousness. One afternoon, while wiping down the polished floors of a corporate lobby, she overheard a conversation. "Did you see the video?" a woman asked, voice low. "Yeah," another replied. "I don't know how she expects to keep her job now. Big companies don't like trouble." Emily's heart sank. Fear crept in. Fear of losing the only steady income she had. That night, alone in her apartment, she stared at the ceiling, doubt swirling. Was she strong enough to face this storm? But the world can surprise you. One morning, Emily received a call from a woman named Lisa, a community organizer who had been following the story. "We want to help," Lisa said. "There are others like you, workers who've been ignored, abused, pushed aside. It's time to stand together." Emily agreed to meet. In a modest community center packed with weary but determined faces, Emily found a new family. Janitors, maids, bus drivers, people with stories like hers, stories of resilience. They spoke of protests, petitions, demands for fair treatment. Emily's voice grew stronger with each meeting. She was no longer just a victim of a rich woman's cruelty. She was a leader, a beacon of hope. Victoria Marston, meanwhile, was not content to let the matter fade. Her lawyers intensified their efforts, sending cease and desist letters and threatening lawsuits. Rumors circulated that she was using her influence to pressure Emily's employer to fire her. One morning, Emily was called into the manager's office. "Emily, we appreciate your work, but, given the attention this situation has brought, we're considering terminating your contract," the manager said awkwardly. Emily's heart broke, but her resolve hardened. "I'm not going anywhere," she said firmly. "I have a right to work, and I'm not afraid." Back on social media, the video had ignited a movement. #JusticeForEmily trended for weeks, with celebrities and activists weighing in. Fundraisers were set up to help Emily and her family. Emily received messages from strangers, sharing their own stories, offering encouragement. She realized she was no longer invisible. One evening, after a long day of meetings and interviews, Emily video called her mother and Marcus. Her mother's face was lined with worry but lit with pride. "We're so proud of you, Emily. You're making a difference." Marcus, grinning from ear to ear, said, "You're a hero, big sis." Emily smiled through tears. For all the hardship, the sacrifices, the pain, moments like these made it worthwhile. Emily knew the road ahead would be long and hard. Victoria Marston's power was vast. The legal battles, the media storms, the threats, they all loomed. But for the first time, Emily felt ready. She was no longer alone. She was a voice for the many who had been silenced. And she would fight not just for herself, but for every invisible worker like her. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, the soft glow of the street lamp outside casting long shadows across the room. The weight of the past weeks pressed down on her like a crushing tide, the viral video, the mounting pressure from Victoria Marston's empire, the isolation from co-workers, and the unyielding fight to hold on to her dignity. She closed her eyes, letting memories flood back. The laughter of her brother Marcus as a child, the gentle voice of her mother coaxing her through hard days, the warmth of her father's embrace, now forever gone. A bitter ache blossomed in her chest. Her dreams, once bright and hopeful, felt distant, almost unreachable. The world she had hoped to build for her family now seemed fragile, threatened by forces beyond her control. She whispered a prayer, her voice trembling. God, give me strength. I'm so tired. The spotlight she never asked for had become both a beacon and a curse. At work, whispers turned into cold stares. Her manager's calls grew terse. Rumors of her dismissal circulated like wildfire. Friends she once trusted began to distance themselves, afraid of being caught in the storm. Emily felt the loneliness seep into her bones. One evening, after a harsh confrontation at work, Emily returned home shattered. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the door. Inside, the silence greeted her like a knife. She collapsed onto the worn sofa, tears streaming freely. The pain of rejection, injustice, and exhaustion overwhelmed her. I can't do this, she sobbed. Just then, her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Mom says you're a warrior. We believe in you. We love you. Emily's sobs quieted. She wiped her tears and sat up. A flicker of hope, a reminder she was not alone. The next day, Emily attended a rally organized by Lisa and other workers' rights activists. The crowd was large voices loud with demand for justice. Emily stepped to the microphone, heart pounding. Her voice cracked, but she spoke from the soul. I am not just a cleaner. I am a human being. I have dreams. I have a family who depends on me. We all deserve respect. The crowd erupted in cheers. But Victoria Marston was relentless. Her legal team launched a defamation lawsuit, aiming to silence Emily. The media frenzy intensified. Emily faced threats, intimidation, and the very real possibility of losing everything. At home, Emily grappled with fear and doubt. Could she withstand this storm? Or would her dreams be shattered forever? The city skyline glittered through Victoria Marston's penthouse window, but the sparkling lights felt cold and distant, like shards of glass reflecting the turmoil inside her. Victoria paced the expansive room, her designer heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. For weeks, her public image had taken a beating. The viral video of her kicking mud onto a struggling cleaner had ignited fury, painting her as the villain in a story she hadn't anticipated. Her PR team buzzed with damage control plans, legal threats, and carefully crafted statements. But none of it reached her heart. Late at night, away from cameras and crowds, Victoria felt the weight of her actions. She had always been taught that power meant control, that wealth demanded respect, but never had she imagined how a single careless moment could shatter so much. Sitting alone in her sleek kitchen, Victoria stared at the message glowing on her phone, an anonymous tip about Emily's identity, her family struggles, the strength behind her tear-streaked eyes. Something inside Victoria cracked. The woman she had dismissed as insignificant suddenly became very real. Her mind replayed that rainy morning, Emily standing frozen, shocked, the mud dripping down her dress. Victoria's pride battled with a growing shame. After hours of contemplation, Victoria made a decision, one that shocked her team. She picked up the phone and called Jake, the journalist who had recorded the video. I want to talk to Emily, she said, her voice steady but quiet. Jake was skeptical but agreed to arrange a meeting. In a neutral cafe, Emily sat nervously, hands clenched around her coffee cup. The room buzzed with the murmur of other patrons, but all she could hear was the pounding of her heart. Victoria entered, dressed simply, her usual air of confidence replaced with something softer, vulnerability. Their eyes met. For a long moment, silence. Then Victoria spoke. Emily, I came here to apologize. What I did was cruel and thoughtless. I want to make things right. Emily's throat tightened. Anger and pain flared inside her. How do I know this isn't just another show? she asked quietly. Victoria looked down, then back up, meeting Emily's gaze. I don't expect forgiveness overnight. But I want to listen. I want to learn. The conversation was raw and honest. Victoria shared her upbringing, a world of pressure, expectations, and loneliness. Emily spoke of her fight for dignity and respect. They found unlikely common ground, two women shaped by vastly different lives, both yearning for something more. News of the meeting leaked, stirring fresh waves of debate. Some hailed it as a step toward healing. Others accused Victoria of a publicity stunt. Emily faced backlash again, but she stood firm. Back home, Emily felt a cautious hope blooming. Maybe, just maybe, change was possible. But the fight was far from over. The days after the meeting passed in a dizzying blur for Emily. The fragile thread of hope Victoria's apology offered tangled with her pain and mistrust. Every headline seemed to carry a question. Could a billionaire truly change? Could someone who had caused so much hurt seek genuine forgiveness? Emily wasn't sure yet. Back at work, tensions simmered. Some colleagues whispered about her deal with Victoria, others still avoided her. Emily's manager grew cold, avoiding eye contact. One morning, Emily found a note slipped under her door. Stay strong. It was unsigned, but it felt like a lifeline. Victoria, too, grappled with her conscience. Public opinion was unforgiving. At gala events, she felt eyes burn into her, suspicion thick in the air. But she pushed forward, determined to use her influence to support worker rights, a promise she made quietly to herself and to Emily. Emily and Victoria began meeting occasionally, cautiously. Victoria listened, learning about the daily realities of workers she had never seen before. Emily felt the weight of representing so many voices. The media speculated endlessly. Was this a genuine change, or a carefully staged act? Meanwhile, Victoria's legal team pressed forward, suing Emily for defamation. The courtroom became a battleground not just for Emily's reputation, but for justice itself. In court, Emily stood tall despite the storm. With Jake's support and a growing community behind her, she told her story plainly not as a victim, but as a fighter. Outside the courthouse, a crowd gathered, signs waving, chants rising. Emily saw faces of people she never knew, united by a shared hope. She realized this fight was bigger than her. That night, alone but unbroken, Emily looked out her window at the city lights. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, she believed in the possibility of change. The city buzzed with tension as Emily's lawsuit against Victoria Marston became the talk of every cafe, newsroom, and social media feed. The cleaner who dared to stand up to a billionaire had become a symbol, a lightning rod for justice, courage, and controversy. Emily's phone never stopped ringing. Messages of support poured in, but so did threats and insults, a painful reminder of the harsh world she had stepped into. Every morning, she faced the mirror and saw not just the woman with the muddy dress, but a warrior whose fight was far from over. The first day of the trial arrived like a storm. The courthouse was packed. Cameras flashed. Reporters jostled for the best angle. Spectators whispered as Emily walked into the room, her heart pounding but her gaze steady. Victoria Marston sat on the other side, poised and cold, her lawyer flanking her like armor. The air was thick with unspoken words, years of power clashing with raw truth. Emily's testimony was simple but powerful. She spoke of her life, the endless work, the sacrifices, the humiliation of that day. She told the court about her family, the struggles that shaped her, the dreams she still held. Each word echoed in the silent courtroom. Victoria's lawyers attacked fiercely, trying to paint Emily as dishonest, seeking fame and fortune. They brought up her financial struggles, her background, trying to undermine her credibility. Emily felt the weight of every accusation but stood firm, her resolve unshaken. Outside, a crowd gathered daily, chanting for justice. Strangers, activists, workers from all walks of life united in support. Emily became their voice, a beacon lighting the way for many who had long been invisible. But behind the scenes, Emily's strength was tested. Late nights, tears shed in solitude, moments of doubt creeping in. She called her mother often, drawing strength from their bond. Marcus's laughter on the other end of the line was a balm to her weary soul. Meanwhile, Victoria faced her own demons. Her world of luxury felt hollow. She watched the rallies, the rising support for Emily, and wondered if she had truly made amends or just opened a deeper wound. The public eye was unforgiving, but Victoria felt a stirring inside, a desire to change, not for show, but for herself. As the trial moved forward, the balance shifted. Emily's story resonated, her authenticity shining through. Victoria's defenses weakened, cracks appearing in her carefully constructed image. One night, Emily sat by her window, city lights blinking like distant stars. The fight had brought pain and uncertainty, but also hope. She was no longer alone. The battle lines were drawn, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The courtroom grew colder as the defense took the floor. Victoria's lead attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Caroline Blake, rose confidently. Her voice was smooth, precise, a practiced performance designed to unravel Emily's truth. "Ladies and gentlemen," Caroline began, "what we have here is not a story of injustice but a carefully orchestrated attempt at defamation." She paced slowly before the jury. "Mississippi Roberts seeks to paint a billionaire as a villain for personal gain. But the truth is far from her version of events." Emily sat still, heart pounding as Caroline detailed supposed inconsistencies in her statements, questioning her motives. "Isn't it true," Caroline asked, "that you sought media attention before this incident?" Emily's jaw tightened, but she answered calmly, "No. I never wanted this attention. I wanted respect." The defense called witnesses co-workers who hinted at personal grievances, former employers who questioned her reliability. Each word stung, but Emily held on to the truth she carried deep inside. Victoria herself took the stand. She appeared composed, the epitome of control. But when asked about the moment she kicked the mud, her voice faltered. "I acted thoughtlessly," she admitted. "I was under stress, but that's no excuse. I regret what I did." The room shifted. A billionaire showing remorse was rare and unexpected. But Caroline quickly steered the narrative back to doubt and denial. Outside the courtroom, Emily's supporters gathered. Signs waved. Voices raised in chants of solidarity. But Emily felt the weight of every stare inside the building. That night, she lay awake, replaying the day's events, the emotional drain threatening to consume her. A call from Lisa, the community organizer, brought a flicker of light. "We're planning a campaign," Lisa said, "to support you, to raise awareness. You're not alone." Emily's resolve strengthened. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for all the invisible workers silenced for too long. Meanwhile, Victoria faced growing isolation. Her social circle shrank as whispers of scandal spread. She found herself questioning not just her public image but her very identity. The woman who had never known vulnerability now grappled with shame and loneliness. As the trial entered a critical phase, both women stood at crossroads. Emily, weary but unbroken, ready to claim her voice. Victoria, conflicted, seeking redemption but unsure if it was within reach. The courthouse hallways felt colder than ever as Emily walked through the throng of reporters and onlookers. Cameras flashed, questions fired at her from all sides, but her focus was fixed on the courtroom ahead, the place where her truth would either be shattered or vindicated. Her lawyer squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Stay strong, Emily. We're almost there." Inside, Caroline Blake's closing statement was sharp and relentless. She portrayed Emily as opportunistic, driven by a thirst for fame and financial gain. But when Emily's attorney took the floor, everything changed. He spoke of dignity, respect, and the courage of one woman standing against a powerful empire. He reminded the jury of the raw, undeniable truth, a moment captured on video, a life forever altered by careless cruelty. Victoria sat in the front row, watching Emily's attorney with an unreadable expression. The weight of the courtroom pressed on her, forcing a reckoning she could no longer avoid. For the first time, she saw beyond her own pain, saw the real cost of her actions. As the jury deliberated, Emily retreated to a quiet room, the tension almost suffocating. She thought of her mother's soft voice, Marcus's laughter, Jake's unwavering support. She closed her eyes, drawing strength from the love that anchored her. Hours later, the courtroom filled once more. The jury filed in, faces grave. The foreperson stood and announced the decision. A hush fell. Emily held her breath. Then, the words, "In favor of the plaintiff." Tears streamed down Emily's face, relief, vindication, and an overwhelming sense of justice. But she knew this was not the end. The fight for dignity, respect, and fairness for all workers was only beginning. Outside the courthouse, Victoria approached Emily quietly. "I want to keep working to make things right," she said softly. Emily looked at her eyes, weary but hopeful. "Actions speak louder than words," Emily replied. As the crowd dispersed, Emily and Victoria stood together for a moment, two women from different worlds, connected by a painful past and the possibility of change. The city's lights flickered in the distance, a new dawn breaking for them both. Emily woke before dawn, the soft hum of the city stirring around her. The morning light seeped gently through her curtains, casting a fragile glow on the worn floorboards. Today was unlike any other. The trial victory was behind her, but the real work was just beginning. She sat at the kitchen table, a cup of steaming coffee in her hands, feeling the weight of every story she carried inside. Not just her own, but those of thousands of invisible workers who had long suffered in silence. Her phone buzzed, messages of congratulations, calls from activists, and an invitation to speak at a national workers' conference. Emily's heart swelled with both pride and fear. This new role was daunting, but necessary. News outlets across the country covered Emily's story extensively. Interviews aired on television, articles flooded the internet, and social media buzzed with hashtags demanding fair treatment for all workers. Emily became a reluctant symbol, a beacon of hope and resilience. Yet, the spotlight brought new challenges. Invitations to speak were often laced with scrutiny, and some questioned whether she was ready. Through it all, her family remained her anchor. Late-night calls with her mother grounded her, Marcus's laughter reminding her of the light worth fighting for. Their love was the steady heartbeat in the storm. Victoria Marston faced her own transformation. No longer shielded by wealth and power alone, she sought to use her influence for good. She launched initiatives supporting fair wages and worker protections, determined to atone for her past. Despite their differences, Emily and Victoria met regularly, forging an uneasy but genuine alliance. Their conversations were raw and honest, both women learning and growing from each other's experiences. But change was slow, resistance strong. Corporations pushed back, legal battles loomed, and public opinion shifted unpredictably. Emily knew the path ahead would be filled with battles yet unseen. One evening, as she looked out over the city skyline, Emily felt a renewed determination. Her story was no longer just about her, it was about every voice that had been silenced for too long. And she would fight with everything she had. The days blurred as Emily traveled from city to city, speaking to crowds both large and small. Each audience was different, but the message was the same: dignity, respect, and justice for all workers. Her voice, once soft and uncertain, grew stronger with every speech. But beneath the public applause, a private storm raged. Fatigue gnawed at her bones, and the constant scrutiny weighed heavily. Late one night, Emily's phone lit up with a video call from Marcus. His face was bright, but tired. "Big sis, when are you coming home?" he asked. "I'm trying, baby," Emily whispered, tears welling. "I miss you." Their bond was her anchor, but distance carved a hollow ache. Meanwhile, Victoria faced backlash from her own circles. Some board members questioned her softness, while critics accused her of playing PR games. But Victoria pressed on, knowing true change was a slow, painful process. She visited worker centers, listened to stories firsthand, and pledged resources to aid reform. The workers' rights movement swelled, fueled by Emily's courage and Victoria's influence. Protests erupted, petitions circulated, and lawmakers began to take notice. But entrenched interests fought hard to maintain the status quo. One afternoon, exhausted and overwhelmed, Emily broke down in tears. Jake found her sitting alone in a park, her face streaked with sorrow. "You don't have to do this alone," he said gently. Emily looked up, determination rekindled. "I'm tired," she admitted. "But I can't stop now." Despite the challenges, victories came. Companies improved wages, passed new policies, and apologized for past abuses. Emily's name became synonymous with change, inspiring countless others. Yet, Emily knew this was just the beginning. The fight for justice was a marathon, not a sprint. And she was ready to run it, for herself, for her family, and for all those who deserved to be seen. The victory in court was a milestone, but the fight was far from over. Emily woke each day to a world that still didn't fully see her or millions like her. The exhaustion was relentless, but so was the fire inside her. She sat alone in her tiny apartment, the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. Calls from activists, journalists, and supporters never stopped. The movement demanded more speeches, more interviews, more sacrifice. Her family's faces filled her thoughts, especially Marcus, whose bright smile was a beacon in the darkest moments. But courage came at a price. Emily's health began to falter. Sleepless nights, stress, and pressure left her drained. One afternoon, she collapsed during a meeting and was rushed to the hospital. The diagnosis was clear: exhaustion, compounded by anxiety and stress. News of Emily's hospitalization spread quickly. Support flooded in, but so did the doubts. Critics whispered about her weakness, questioning her ability to lead. Emily's faith wavered, but she clung to hope. Victoria heard the news and felt a pang of guilt. Despite their differences, she cared. She visited Emily, their relationship deepening beyond public appearances. In the quiet hospital room, Emily shared her fears and hopes with Victoria. Their bond, forged through struggle, became a source of strength. Emily's brief absence only strengthened the movement. Leaders rose up, inspired by her courage and vision. As she recovered, Emily prepared to return stronger, wiser, and more determined. Emily lay back against the crisp hospital sheets, the sterile scent filling her senses. The white walls felt cold but safe, a stark contrast to the chaos that had become her life. She closed her eyes, feeling the exhaustion seep into every muscle. Victoria sat beside her, offering quiet support, her usual confidence softened into genuine concern. "I'm sorry it came to this," Victoria whispered, her fingers brushing Emily's hand. Emily smiled weakly. "No apologies. I just need to get better. For my family, for everyone depending on me." Her phone buzzed incessantly, messages from strangers she'd never met, sharing stories of hope and resilience. One message stood out: "You're not alone. We are stronger together." Outside the hospital walls, the movement flourished. New leaders emerged, rallies multiplied, and lawmakers began to listen. Emily's vision was becoming reality slowly, painfully, but surely. Yet, the cost weighed heavily. Missed birthdays, fractured friendships, and the constant strain on her relationship with Marcus and her mother. Victoria grappled with her own demons, public scrutiny, boardroom battles, and a growing realization that true change demanded more than words. She vowed to be a better ally, not just in public, but behind closed doors. As Emily's strength returned, she began planning a nationwide campaign, a call to action for worker dignity and justice. In a quiet moment, Emily looked out her hospital window, the city skyline glowing in the dusk. She whispered a promise to herself: "This is only the beginning." Weeks passed, and Emily slowly regained her strength. The hospital became a sanctuary, a place of healing not just for her body but for her spirit. Each morning, she practiced breathing, feeling the steady rhythm calm her mind. She began writing again, filling her journal with reflections, hopes, and plans. One crisp morning, Marcus arrived unexpectedly at her bedside, a bouquet of wildflowers in hand. The smile they shared was a balm to all the pain. When Emily finally returned home, the city greeted her with cheers and open arms. The movement had grown, fueled by her courage and the voices of many. Victoria attended a press conference with Emily, standing beside her as a sign of genuine solidarity. Their partnership, once unlikely, symbolized a new chapter. But the fight was far from over. Corporate resistance hardened, political obstacles loomed, and the road to justice remained long. Under the glow of city lights, Emily vowed to press on for her family, for her community, and for every worker seeking respect. Her journey had tested her, but it had not broken her. As dawn broke over the skyline, Emily stood ready, not just as a survivor, but as a leader, a beacon of hope, and a catalyst for change. The victory in court had marked a turning point, but the battles that followed cut deeper. Emily found herself thrust into a world where every step forward was met with fierce resistance from powerful corporations, skeptical politicians, and even whispers within her own community. She sat in her small apartment one evening, surrounded by letters and petitions, the hum of the city outside her window both comforting and relentless. Her phone buzzed again. Another invitation to speak, another demand for answers. The movement was growing, but so were the challenges. Emily felt the crushing weight of expectation. The people saw her as a beacon, a leader who could not falter. But beneath the public image was a woman wrestling with exhaustion and fear. She longed for normalcy, for a moment to breathe without the glare of the spotlight. Victoria's transformation was no easier. Facing criticism from old allies and new adversaries, she grappled with the price of change. Board meetings grew tense, and her every move scrutinized. Yet she remained steadfast, determined to use her power to dismantle the very systems she once benefited from. Within the movement, tensions arose. Differences in vision and approach threatened to fracture the fragile coalition. Emily worked tirelessly to unify voices, reminding all that their shared goal outweighed their disagreements. Late nights and endless travel took their toll. Emily's relationship with her family strained under the pressure. She missed Marcus's school plays, her mother's quiet evenings. One night, as she prepared for a major rally, Emily received a threatening letter, a stark reminder of the forces aligned against her. But instead of fear, it ignited a fierce determination. The day of the rally arrived with thunderous energy. Thousands gathered, voices rising in unison, demanding justice and respect. Emily stood at the forefront, her voice ringing clear and unwavering. As the sun set, painting the sky in fiery hues, Emily felt the strength of the crowd, the power of unity, and the promise of change. The rally's energy lingered long after the crowd dispersed. Emily felt a surge of hope, but the road ahead was far from clear. In the days that followed, threats grew louder, online harassment, anonymous calls, and veiled warnings. She found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, a heaviness settling in her chest. The movement faced internal struggles. Some activists pushed for radical action, while others urged caution. Emily worked tirelessly to bridge divides, knowing unity was their greatest strength. Her relationship with Marcus became strained. Calls went unanswered, missed milestones left unspoken. One evening, a tearful conversation reminded her of what was at stake. Victoria faced mounting pressure from her board and social circle. Some accused her of betraying their interests. She fought back with renewed vigor, channeling criticism into action. Exhaustion and stress pushed Emily to her limits. A breakdown in private threatened to undo her public strength. Jake and Lisa stood by her side, offering steady support and encouragement. Their belief in her fueled her determination. Despite challenges, small victories came, new policies, allies gained, awareness raised. Emily knew the battle was far from over. She steeled herself for what lay ahead, ready to fight harder than ever. The nights were the hardest. When the city lights dimmed and the noise faded, Emily was left alone with her fears and doubts. The faces of those who depended on her, Marcus, her mother, the countless workers, filled her thoughts. One night, after a long day of meetings and rallies, she sat by the window, tears streaming silently. The fight had cost her dearly, but she refused to give up. A surprise visit from Marcus the next day brought a fragile moment of joy. His wide smile and open arms reminded her of why she fought so hard. Victoria doubled down on her efforts, working tirelessly behind the scenes to implement meaningful change. The movement held firm, united despite internal struggles and external threats. Under the glow of a city sunrise, Emily made a vow to keep fighting, no matter the cost. Her journey was far from over. The courthouse hallways felt colder than ever as Emily walked through the throng of reporters and onlookers. Cameras flashed, questions fired at her from all sides, but her focus was fixed on the courtroom ahead, the place where her truth would either be shattered or vindicated. Her lawyer squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Stay strong, Emily. We're almost there." Inside, Caroline Blake's closing statement was sharp and relentless. She portrayed Emily as opportunistic, driven by a thirst for fame and financial gain. But when Emily's attorney took the floor, everything changed. He spoke of dignity, respect, and the courage of one woman standing against a powerful empire. He reminded the jury of the raw, undeniable truth, a moment captured on video, a life forever altered by careless cruelty. Victoria sat in the front row, watching Emily's attorney with an unreadable expression. The weight of the courtroom pressed on her, forcing a reckoning she could no longer avoid. For the first time, she saw beyond her own pain, saw the real cost of her actions. As the jury deliberated, Emily retreated to a quiet room, the tension almost suffocating. She thought of her mother's soft voice, Marcus's laughter, Jake's unwavering support. She closed her eyes, drawing strength from the love that anchored her. Hours later, the courtroom filled once more. The jury filed in, faces grave. The foreperson stood and announced the decision. A hush fell. Emily held her breath. Then, the words. In favor of the plaintiff. Tears streamed down Emily's face, relief, vindication, and an overwhelming sense of justice. But she knew this was not the end. The fight for dignity, respect, and fairness for all workers was only beginning. Outside the courthouse, Victoria approached Emily quietly. I want to keep working to make things right, she said softly. Emily looked at her eyes weary but hopeful. Actions speak louder than words, Emily replied. As the crowd dispersed, Emily and Victoria stood together for a moment, two women from different worlds, connected by a painful past and the possibility of change. The city's lights flickered in the distance, a new dawn breaking for them both. The glow from the rally still burned bright, but the aftermath was sobering. Emily returned home, the city's weight heavier than ever on her shoulders. The victory had been significant, but it had stirred powerful enemies. The nights were restless, filled with shadows, both external threats and internal fears. Anonymous letters turned to direct warnings. The cost of change was steep. The distance between Emily and Marcus grew. Misunderstandings, missed calls, and the pressure of public life wore on their bond. One evening, a painful argument left Emily questioning if she could hold her family together. Victoria faced betrayal within her own company. Board members moved to oust her, fearing the backlash of her activism. She leaned on Emily for strength, their unlikely partnership tested like never before. The coalition fractured as radical voices pushed for more aggressive action, while moderates urged caution. Emily struggled to keep the fragile alliance intact. Every decision felt like walking a tightrope. Emily's resolve was strong, but the loneliness was crushing. A surprise visit from a seasoned politician offered new hope, a potential ally willing to champion their cause. Emily prepared for a pivotal meeting that could change everything, but the stakes had never been higher. Emily's days blurred into a relentless whirlwind of meetings, phone calls, and strategy sessions. Each moment carried the weight of countless voices counting on her. The strain of leadership showed in her weary eyes and tired hands, but her spirit refused to break. Marcus's frustration grew palpable. One evening, a tearful phone call exposed the growing chasm between them. I don't know if I can keep waiting, he said softly. Emily's heart shattered, but she promised to make things right. Victoria faced ruthless opposition. Boardroom allies turned into enemies overnight, and whispers of a coup circulated. Her fight became not just about change, but survival. Factions clashed violently during a tense meeting. Emily struggled to mediate, knowing the future of the movement hung in the balance. Exhaustion and doubt gnawed at Emily. She wondered if the sacrifices were worth the cost. The unexpected visit from Senator James Clark brought a glimmer of hope. He promised to introduce legislation supporting worker rights, a game changer. With renewed determination, Emily prepared to face the toughest fight yet. The night before the pivotal legislative meeting, Emily sat alone in her apartment, the city lights flickering beyond her window like distant stars. Her hands trembled as she reviewed notes, speeches, and endless petitions. The weight of the moment pressed down, heavy and unrelenting. Her phone buzzed a message from Marcus, simple but powerful. I'm proud of you, sis. Keep fighting. Tears blurred her vision. For all the chaos, for all the battles, her family remained her anchor. Across town, Victoria prepared for her own battles. The boardroom was a battlefield, alliances shifting like quicksand. Yet she held firm, determined to prove that change was not just possible, but necessary. Emily gathered her closest allies for a final strategy session. Differences were set aside, unity was paramount. The room hummed with resolve. The day dawned cold and gray. Inside the packed hearing room, Emily, Victoria, Senator Clark, and others waited as lawmakers prepared to debate the historic bill. Emily's heart pounded as she took the stand, her voice clear and unwavering. She spoke not just of policies, but of lives of dignity, hope, and the future. The bill passed by a narrow margin, a historic win, but the fight was far from over. Outside, supporters cheered, but Emily knew the road ahead would be long. That night, Emily walked home beneath the stars, her heart full. Change had come slowly, Painfully, but it had come. The city stirred quietly beneath the first light of dawn. Emily stood on the rooftop of her small apartment building, the cool breeze brushing her face, the skyline stretching endlessly before her. The fight had been long, brutal, and exhausting, but the horizon now held the promise of something new. Her heart beat steady, filled with hope and resolve. She thought of Marcus, her mother, her community of every person who had stood with her, believed in her, and fought alongside her. The path from that muddy morning when a billionaire's careless act had changed her life to now had been unimaginable. There had been tears, heartbreak, betrayal, and fear. But also courage, resilience, and love. Emily's story was no longer hers alone. It belonged to every worker demanding dignity. The new laws passed, protections instituted, and public awareness surged. But Emily knew the real work was in the everyday, in workplaces, homes, and hearts. The movement had sparked a revolution of respect. Victoria stood beside Emily at a community center opening, their alliance a symbol of unlikely hope. She had faced her own reckoning and chose change over comfort. Later, in the quiet of her home, Emily embraced Marcus. The years of distance melted away in that moment. Promises were made to cherish every day, no matter how hard the fight. Emily looked out at the stars, whispering a vow. The fight had changed her. It had changed the city. But above all, it had ignited a fire that would never be extinguished. The sun was high now, casting golden light across the city streets. Emily walked through a neighborhood transformed, murals celebrating workers, small businesses thriving, and people smiling with newfound hope. She paused at a mural painted in her honor, a symbol of perseverance etched in vibrant colors. Emily met with Victoria in a quiet park, away from the cameras and crowds. Their conversation was raw and honest. "I never imagined how much pain I caused," Victoria said softly. "But I'm committed to making amends not just with words, but with actions." Emily nodded. "It's a start. Healing takes time." At a community event, Emily spoke to a crowd of young people, inspiring the next generation to stand for justice. Her words were a beacon, a call to carry the torch forward. That evening, Emily cooked dinner with Marcus and her mother. Laughter filled the small kitchen, a testament to the power of love and resilience. Before bed, Emily opened her journal. She wrote of dreams, not just for herself, but for all who had joined the fight. The future was uncertain, but filled with possibility. As she closed the journal, Emily felt a quiet strength. The fire she ignited would burn long after she was gone. The night was quiet, the city asleep beneath a blanket of stars. Emily stood on her rooftop once more, the cool wind wrapping around her like a gentle embrace. Below, the streets hummed softly, life continuing, changed but still moving forward. She thought back to the very beginning, the splash of muddy water, the humiliation, the pain. How a single moment had sparked a fire that no one could extinguish. Victoria's apology had been the start of an unlikely friendship, a bridge between two worlds. Together, they had faced adversity, criticism, and fear, but also hope, growth, and change. Emily knew her journey was part of something greater, a movement that would ripple through time, inspiring those who came after. Her voice, once quiet, had become a roar for justice. Looking out over the city skyline, Emily whispered a vow. "I will never stop fighting. For dignity. For respect. For every voice that deserves to be heard." The dawn was breaking, painting the sky with shades of gold and pink. A new day was beginning. Bright, uncertain, but full of promise. And Emily was ready. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to leave a meaningful comment below. Let us know your thoughts, and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. It means a lot to us to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more amazing content like this. And to all our returning subscribers, thank you for your continued support. We couldn't do this without you. Stay tuned for more exciting videos coming your way, and we'll see you in the next one.